President Muhammadu Buhari's visit to Imo State is still making headlines. Contrary to insinuations during the rounds, the presidency yesterday declared that the visit by President Muhammadu Buhari to Imo State was a pleasant experience, as he was overwhelmed by the reception accorded him by Southeast leaders during his official visit to the heartland of the East last week. The presidency, therefore, clarified a statement credited to the president in Owerri, the Imo State capital, where he was quoted to have told Governor Hope Uzodimma that "I'll be careful with your future invitations," end of quote. The statement has still generated controversy in the state, as the opposition had interpreted the statement to mean that the president was not satisfied with the visit. According to the presidency, open quote, "An elated president, Buhari made it clear that he was expressly overwhelmed by the reception and galaxy of personnels and personalities that traveled from 5 southeastern states to have a heart-to-heart discussion with him in Owerri, the Imo State capital." End of quote. Let's talk about this, Tundu. Days after, why all of this talk of furore?
Well, I think he just feels the need to clarify. And success is in the eye of the beholder, or the person measuring success would decide what a successful trip looks like to him. What I think the presidency is trying to really underscore is that IPOB or whoever are non-factors as far as they are concerned, because this is a proscribed group, as we all know, that the creme de la creme of Indigo came out and met with the president. And this sort of glowing review, as you've said, days after, so the goodwill seems to have lingered. It makes me hopeful, I dare to hope, actually, that those conversations that were held with the president by the leadership of the Igbo people were fruitful, and that they tabled all their concerns about Igbo people being marginalized politically in this country, and economically, and socially. And I hope that this suggests that the president listened to them and is going to take action, because for me, that is what really matters here. When I did hear that statement about how the president will be more careful with a governor's invitation, I recalled our constitution and our presidential election system that we have here, which requires that you win across board. You cannot be president of only a part of Nigeria. You must be president of the whole of Nigeria. Geographical spread is key here, section 133 and 134. So this also reminds us that a president of Nigeria had been told that he's not welcome in any region or any state, rather than just being dismissed. A lot of attention has to be paid to that. It goes to show that there's work that needs to be done here. You don't get to dismiss that, oh, one state in this country does not want me, or one region. You can't. That's not the way our constitution works. So I hope that going forward, we're going to see some changes.
Dr. Batsi?
Well, I think it's as follows. Yesterday, we had as guest on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, Femi Adesina, the presidential spokesperson. And the question that I put to him, one of the questions, has to do with this. Why would the president say that, he would be careful about future invitations to Imo? And what Femi Adesina told us is that, look, this has nothing to do with either IPOB or any fears about, the people's attitude towards the president. That the president, I'm trying to quote him as, in a detailed manner as possible, does not like surprises. That any time he's visiting any part of the country or any activity whatsoever, he wants his schedules spelled out, and that he usually tells them that as a soldier, he doesn't like people springing up surprises around him. In other words, as a professional soldier, no soldier would like to be ambushed. So he went to Imo State, according to Femi Adesina, on the invitation of the governor of Imo State to come and commission a number of projects. And we saw those projects, a drainage project, road, one major road, and then executive chamber at the government house. And then, of course, there was this meeting with leaders of thought in the Southeast, the Ohanese, Indigbo, and others. And Femi Adesina said, when the president entered, there was a huge crowd of Igbo leaders, the who is who in Igbo land. And, he wasn't prepared for that. So he felt overwhelmed because nobody had informed him about the likely size of, Igbo leaders of thought that he will engage with. And it was in that context that he expressed surprise that he didn't know that everybody would be here. contrary, to the public messaging process, that the president was not welcome. So if the Igbo elite came from across all the 5 states to come and welcome the president, as a politician, of course, would naturally be elated. Every politician enjoys love. No politician likes to be hated. Because it's on the basis of the love that the people have for you that you can win elections, that you can make a difference, that you can mobilize the people using local resources. So that was the clarification. However, the second leg of it is the statement issued by Femi Adesina himself after that visit to draw attention to some of the highlights of the conversation with these Igbo leaders of thought. How the president said that, look, Nigeria cannot do without Igbos because the Igbos are the masters of entrepreneurship in Nigeria, and how he appealed to the Igbo leaders to make sure that they mobilize their people to support the process of ensuring free and fair elections in 2023, where that's a no-brainer. What you expect will be free and fair elections in 2023, and the president himself, leading that process of ensuring free and fair elections. And he assured the people of the Southeast of providing improved security, enhanced security, not just in their part of the country, but elsewhere, even as he makes efforts to also fight corruption. And he assured them that projects in the East, particularly the second Niger Bridge, would be completed. On the whole, I think it's good to see the president visiting the Southeast. Second time he will do so since he assumed office. But that visit, that attempt to identify with constituencies should be extended to other parts of the country too. There's this misconception that the presidential villa is like some kind of permanent office. The president of Nigeria can work from any part of the country. I would like to see the day arrive, when the president of Nigeria will leave Abuja for maybe a week and go and work and run Nigeria from Aba. Or he will go to Cross River, or he will go to Budukatu Ranch. Move around. Let the people feel you. After all, every state has a presidential guest house. Many of those presidential guest houses are, wasting away because our presidents are often too busy just staying in one spot, for as long as they are in office.
Sounds to be a fine thing.
Right.
So leave the luxurious surroundings of the villa to go and stay in some dilapidated presidential lot. I'd like to see that day too.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sundar. Thanks so much, Dr. Abati. And that's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rotu Sudiri, Adeswa Mora, Aaron Akiri to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19 and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on HRISE News. Our dependable Rotu Sudiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotu. I see you nodding. You know you're dependable. You know it.
There's a lot of pressure, huh? like Djokovic. Good morning to you all. Good morning, Dr.
Don't go there.
I won't go there. We'll leave that alone. We begin with foreign exchange pressure, actually. Look at this circular. I got a message on WhatsApp asking me, Rotus, have you seen this? Is this doctor? It says all deposit money banks, international money transfer operators, and the general public convert all domiciliary account holdings to Naira. This is fake, just to put this out there. It's dated today, September the 13th. It was released over the weekend. I think it was seen on Naira. I haven't been on Nairaland in ages. Apparently, Nairaland is still very active and lots of stuff gets released there. But it spread over the weekend, and it's again, this is the second or third time we're talking about this now on the morning show, on these rumors, these fake rumors talking about domiciliary accounts being converted. So the CBN quickly sprung into action. They put out a press release. And in that press release, there it is. They're stating that they denounce it. It is fake. It is folks that are just trying to cause panic in the foreign exchange markets. And as a check, what the central bank said in this press release is for any circulars that they release, you can verify it on their website. So cbn.gov.ng. You can check. You can go on the website and you will see whatever circular has been put out there. So this is again, It's I guess a mystery as to why we still have people in the country that are just putting together these fake notices to cause panic in the market. So anyway, just for the sake of our viewers, again, once more, hope this is the last time we address this, but who knows? Central Bank is not planning on converting anyone's domiciliary foreign exchange to Naira. They also put out a notice. There's also a notice to banks. The Central Bank, again, put out a notice to banks, just letting them know that, just to reiterate that they are observing the channels through which FX is sold from the banks to end users. And they just warned them against malpractices, saying that they could lose their FX license if they are found to be involved in any malpractice. Doctor has talked about this a lot, and it's not just, putting the spotlight on end users, it's also putting the spotlight on the banks as well. So look, why is all this happening? Fake notices, reiterations to, banks and so on. If we look at what's been happening in the parallel market, the Naira has depreciated again. And you have to ask whether is this demand, or how much of this is demand? How much of this is speculation? There's been summer holidays. People have been traveling. So summer holidays are practically over. Schools are resuming. So is it demand for, school fees and other things? Or, is it speculation? Because what is now the parallel market is about 545 now. The INE window is at 512. It was just 2-3 months ago that we were looking at. Here we are approaching 550. So that's the open question. But I would think a measure of this has to be falling towards to speculation. We move to South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa, in an address yesterday, announced an easing of COVID restrictions and also easing on alcohol sales. A number of businesses in the hospitality sector in South Africa have complained about how these alcohol sales have impacted their revenues. I think about almost 50% of their bottom line for most of these restaurants, and other hospitality businesses are generated from alcohol sales. And so yesterday in this television address to South Africans, Ramaphosa said that, cases have come down. I think this will probably speak to this. Cases have come down, and so they're extending alcohol sales and also easing some restrictions here and there. And to Zimbabwe, this is something is not pretty much a surprise to us, in the African region. They're experiencing load shedding. The Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company announced this yesterday, saying that due to issues with generation, the Hwange power station, I think, has a capacity of about 920 megawatts, but it's got aging equipment, and the generation capacity has fallen. So they've got to cut power for about 12 hours a day in order to manage load demand and so on and so forth. Also, I believe it's the Kariba Hydro Power Station is going through a $294 million rehabilitation. It's financed by the European Union, the African Development Bank, the World Bank. So, power issues over in Zimbabwe, load shedding, that's what they're going through. And that's our update for this morning.
Rotus, the truth is, we can go round in circles. Speculators can come have a field day, which we don't want. But we need to do what is right to be able to defend our currency. How do we do that? More dollars need to come in.
Right.
Through trade we need to earn.
Correct.
There are a lot of pressures. People that are going for summer, people that are paying school fees, that pressure is on. People that are going for healthcare. Because we've not developed our healthcare system in this country, $2 billion is going out every year for healthcare. There was a report done recently that says Nigerian healthcare sector is filled with a lot of opportunity. There is a need for over 380,000 beds and real estate space, that an investment worth $82 billion could transform the healthcare sector. A lot of foreigners are coming to invest in our healthcare sector now. We have a $500 billion industry in healthcare alone waiting. Because when you plow in about $82 billion, a lot of more people will stay here. Right. It will be a mecca of some sort for healthcare. That's a $500 billion industry waiting. Doctors are on strike. We're not touching it. Because if you fix that alone, you reduce the FX. You retain more money. So for every time we look away from opportunities, FX goes. For every time we need to depend on China to produce rubber band for us, FX leaves this country. So whatever you try, it's still going to be a slippery slope. The height of our FX dominance, Nigeria had factories. We were producing. So if we don't do that, all of these measures by the CBN is just a temporary measure. That's my case.
$28 billion in education. We talked about that.
Yeah, $28 billion going in education, $2 billion going in. That's $30 billion between education and health alone.
Right. A lot.
Of FX demands.
But to the key point raised by the Central Bank of Nigeria, with regard to the fact that some people put out a fake circular saying that the CBN will now convert domiciliary accounts into Naira. Where the question we should ask is, who is behind this? Who is trying to demarket, discredit the Central Bank of Nigeria? I think the Central Bank should be commended for the prompt reaction, for the prompt disclaimer that they have put out. Because you'll recall that in March, the CBN introduced a policy, what they call the cash for Naira for dollar yes. Policy. That was in March. At no time had the CBN come forward to say that that policy has been reversed. The whole idea of that policy was to encourage diaspora remittances, to increase forex supply within the system. So it will have been clearly a contradiction in terms for the CBN through the back door to now go ahead and say, well, we will seize your, foreign remittances. Now, the thing for the CBN to do is to get the other security agencies involved, to trace the source of this, criminal piece of information, which amounts to an attempt to sabotage monetary policy in Nigeria. And that in itself is an offense. It's a felony. So we would like to have more information in terms of the efforts made by the CBN and the security agencies to get to the root of that particularly disturbing piece of information. As was Zimbabwe, where Zimbabwe has been in crisis for quite a long time. The economy itself is not working. Inflation is over 800%. And what you see in the power sector is a reflection of the crisis within the economy itself. Now, as far back as 2019, the Zimbabwe Electricity Company decided to benchmark tariffs to inflation. So, and at that time, they put caps on consumption. They also adopted the strategy of restricting access to electricity. In 2019-2020, the average Zimbabwean could not enjoy electricity supply for 17 hours. So you could say the people are used to it, but they are not used to it because electricity became very expensive. The electricity company even provided, some kind of grading, the kind of grading that we have here in terms of your level of consumption. But the truth of the matter is that people were denied access to electricity. Now in 2021, the excuse they give is the Kariba Dam, the low water levels in the Kariba Dam. That Kariba Dam that you say is being rehabilitated is owned by Zimbabwe and Zambia. It's a shared asset. So what are the implications of this latest development? We don't know when it will end. That is the problem. And the implications for the average Zimbabwe person is that, one, they won't be able to access for certain hours of the day. They will have no access maybe to mobile telephony. They may not have, because they won't be able to charge their phones. They will not probably have access to train. There will be train delays. Traffic lights will probably no longer work, creating great chaos. But the bigger concern is the security implication. If you have an electric fence, around your house and you are living in a nice suburb of Harare, then you become extremely vulnerable. So, but at the end of the day, it's all about leadership. Because if you don't put the right policies in place, if the leadership does not do the right things for the people, you get to a point where electricity becomes a problem. Access to water, potable water, is also a big problem in Zimbabwe. And they've had a series of currency devaluations. And okay, you increase tariff, you put caps on consumption, the people cannot even pay for it. An average civil servant in Zimbabwe earns $50 per month. An average pensioner gets only $10 per month. The South African subject, maybe I'll reserve my comments on that till when Adesua comes.
Well, with regards to Zimbabwe, they're also dealing with a drought that has implications for the dam and water supply. It's been as bad as 18-hour outages because this Hwange power station is powered by coal. Their colliery is also in complete dire straits because of a lack of investment. And how are they not being able to attract investment? We all understand because Zimbabwe is a bit of a risk, to put it mildly. So it's such a horrible catch-22 situation. And let's not forget mining. Their mining operations are going to be completely moribund now. If you don't have power, then what can you do? A few years ago, there was an attempt to subsidize power for others, but people like in the mining industry would pay more because, it's obviously necessary, but that didn't work. So what happens now with their exports?
It's a tough situation, especially in the COVID year and so
on.
Awful.
So, yeah,
it's awful. It's awful. It's just one issue piled up on another.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Rotus, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Moving on now to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Very good morning to you. The week is starting on, I think, what most people are describing as a sort of sour note, really, basically, given that Wall Street didn't perform particularly well on Friday. We've also got Typhoon Chantu bearing down on Shanghai. It's closing schools and transport and so on. So mainland markets sort of slightly jittery today, but grabbing most of the news, which I'll come on to the detail, is China government's intent to break up Alibaba once again, and shares in Alibaba Group in Hong Kong have fallen, as you would expect. So let's do the Asian markets. I'll give you some detail about that. So I'd say equity markets starting the week lower in Asia. Given that Wall Street ended relatively low and not a huge amount of lift in Wall Street futures today, up about 0.1%. 2%, nothing really at all. The Nikkei unwound particularly, and so on. And Singapore slumping by about 1%. Let's talk about the Alibaba story. So a report in the Financial Times saying that China plans to break up its payment app. Shares obviously fell very sharply in Alibaba and Hong Kong as a result of that. It's going to have a separate platform for the app's profitable lending operation. But the key to it, never mind the breakup, the key to all this is the fact that the company is going to be forced to share its personal data with the authorities, because what's being created is a company which has, one of the companies has a large part of the state actually invested in it. Now, according to China as well, it's got too many electrical vehicle makers. The government will therefore encourage consolidation. That's hits the likes of NIO, Pio, Xpeng and BYD. They may well expand manufacturing in China, but they may find that their companies actually are called something else or even are forced to merge. China's hog farmers, particularly, obviously pork being a huge sale in China, prices up by about 3%, or by about 3 times rather. That big outbreak of Asian swine fever beginning in 2018, that's a long time ago now, but it actually really thinned down herds, so they're suffering there. But the mass production of pork is actually suffering in China, forcing prices up. Cryptos have gone lower today after South Korea announced the September the 24th deadline for local and foreign crypto exchanges to register as local legal entities. So gradually, this squeeze on crypto companies from the regulators is increasing around the world. Let's come to the EU, and Ireland has, according to its civil rights organisation, or request of a civil rights organisation, failed to enforce data information laws on big tech. Google, Microsoft, Twitter and Apple all have European headquarters in Dublin. Therefore, it's down for Ireland to take the lead role in actually clamping down on the data transmission of these companies too. The TUC, the Trades Union Conference in the UK, has said that Britain needs to prepare for more economic shocks. They're talking about climate chaos and all the rest of it. This will come up, obviously, in November when we have a big conference in the UK about that kind of thing. The bosses union from the other side of the table, if you like, the CBI, or the bosses representatives, are saying that the government needs to avoid further taxes on business. No surprise there then. Here's a good one from Ryanair though. Michael O'Leary, who's a well-known sort of big voice in the airline industry. You've probably heard of him. There's predicted rapid growth in air travel, but he's also predicted, and I think this is the important thing, there may well be rapid growth, but there will also be rapid increase in prices. The UK government setting out an infrastructure plan, yet another one today, £650 billion, promising 425,000 new skilled jobs. Well, we'll see. We'll hold them to account over that. Oil prices spiking a little little bit higher, gold nervously steady. Reason being that the week ahead is a big one for basically the United States. Got inflation figures in the United States, but we've also got retail sales as well. I would say retail sales slightly more important, but we always talk about inflation, and I think we're going to get some important pointers towards that later in the week. That'll be the last big figures for the week, really. The big stuff starts next week, so we'll have choppy markets. I think that's what the markets are telling us this week. So this week as it goes on, that's your global view this morning.
All right, Michael, real quickly, I want to talk about something that we never get to talk about. The fact that China is clamping down on the companies it invested in initially under the state capitalism scheme. Is it that China's debt is beginning to boil out of control? Because that's what some people are saying in some quarters. China has got over 240% debt to GDP ratio. Is it that those debts are beginning to boil out of control and something is not, the Chinese government is not being truthful? Because why the clamp down now? Why so much authority at this point in time?
There's always been a worry about the amount of debt in China, and the authorities are continually worrying about that. I think what we're seeing in China, again, it's something we've talked about before, is the fact that they have a different way of regulating. Instead of regulating from the beginning, what they're doing is they're seeing how these companies actually develop, particularly things like Alibaba, which is bigger, as we understand, or at least Ant Financial was bigger than the central bank was in China. So what they're doing is they're testing out these various pillars of capitalism and making sure they're properly regulated, because they've seen what happens. I mean, this is the good side of things. They've seen what happens to the rest of the world when you don't regulate markets sufficiently, like banking crises and so on. However, the bad side of it, the black side of it, is that, like most communist countries, they want to have data on as many people as possible, and that's what they're trying to do. So we've seen clampdowns on banking, we've seen clampdowns on lending, we've seen clampdowns on private tutoring. I thought that that private medical healthcare would be next. I was wrong about that, but we may well see that again. Anything to do with the private sector, which a lot of people are giving personal information towards, is being clamped down on and regulated by the Chinese government. Make of that as you will. But yes, they are worried about debt in China. But then again, you know, China's got debt in the rest of the world too, hasn't it? Supports many governments through buying their bonds. Again, I don't like this confrontational view of China. I think to the negotiating table, let's talk about common interests, because we do have many common interests. It's just that the diplomacy tends to be a bit through the bullhorn, if you like, rather than round a table at the moment. It should be round a table.
Well, two things about China, incidentally. The first has to do with this report, in Britain, that Huawei, the telecom company that could not do 5G technology in the UK, has infiltrated Cambridge. And so much capital has been made out of that. Huawei infiltrating Cambridge and other universities, about 28 universities in the UK, collecting over £40 million from Chinese companies. Well, isn't it possible to draw the line between research and politics? And, this fear that if centers for Chinese study in UK universities are being funded by either Huawei or other Chinese companies, then that poses a threat to national security. Are we not stretching it a bit too far, getting a bit too emotional about China? The other issue about China has to do with the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology in China, telling the tech giants like Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, that they have to open up their platforms and destroy the walled gardens that previously existed. The excuse is about preventing monopoly and protecting consumers' interests. Is it consumers' interests really being protected? Or does the government of China in this regard have another kind of agenda that is not yet clear to us? And finally, a story today on British American tobacco and its unlawful practices in Zimbabwe, giving out bribe, and also engaging a company in South Africa to spy on rivals. BBC Panorama did an investigation. But in the past, we know that British American tobacco got away with it. But elsewhere, in Europe and in the US, when companies engage in unlawful practices internationally, offshore, they get sanctioned. They get questioned. What is the standard in the United Kingdom? Will BAT get away with this, even in the face of overwhelming evidence?
Well, BAT are an international company, so it's not really what they can get away with. I mean, they'll find their stance in various countries. Why they are still promoting tobacco, I do not know. That's got something which tobacco companies actually do. And a lot of them, as you've seen, we saw with Philip Morris, didn't we, want to diversify away from that. Practices in countries for international companies, very, very difficult to draw a line over it. It depends on the country. Some people call it bribery. Some people call it acceding to government wishes and so on. I mean, there's a long, long history of that, right from the East India Company, 300 or 400 years ago. It's the way that the world turns, unfortunately, and it's not very healthy. In the same way that that China is getting into universities here. I don't happen to think personally it's a very good idea, but universities need to be funded, and you're seeing what's happened with a lot of universities here, which are not just have taken money recently from China, but a lot of them, according to the student bodies, are actually toppling statues and getting rid of departments and names because they feel as though initially the money was actually based on slavery, which goes back, and it's a very, very complicated story, as you will well know, helped by various countries in Africa, as well as exploited by the United States and the United Kingdom and most of Europe all those years ago. It's a very, very complicated story. Should we be taking money from those kind of things? Well, look at somebody like Rhodes, for example. Rhodes, who wanted to colonize Africa particularly, and Cambridge University, Oxford University have been trying to get rid of all vestiges of what Rhodes did, including Rhodes scholars, indeed, who were funded by the Rhodes Foundation to come over to the UK to continue their studies. So it all gets really, really complicated. There's no black and white about it. It's grey. You pay as your money, it takes your choice. For me, I'd prefer to see Huawei opened up. I'd like to know whether it really is funded by the Chinese government and whether they have whether they want to prey on our data. I do worry about it. I worry about it a great deal. I worry about it every day. I think most people do, as I've said continually on this program. Data is the new oxygen.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for your insights as always. I mean, it goes way back, historical times. But we need to move on to COVID-19 pandemic and know what's happening. Adesua does a good job for us as regards that. Adesua, great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Rufai Fatukind. Good morning, guys. Dr. Bati, good morning, Tundu. Well, according to the Johns Hopkins University, morning, guys. Let's look at the latest statistics according to the Johns Hopkins University. Globally, COVID-19 cases have surpassed 224 million, while over 5.6 billion doses of vaccines have been administered so far. Reported deaths from the pandemic reached over 4.6 million, and that's the latest statistics from the Johns Hopkins University globally. But here in Nigeria, 8 states are responsible for the latest 365 new infections and 8 COVID-19 related deaths, as reported by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Well, in the last 24 hours, a breakdown shows that Lagos posted the most infections with 209 cases, while Plateau State officially reported just 1 case. Nigeria so far recorded over 199,000 cases. Unfortunately, over 2,598 people have lost their lives to the virus. This is as more states are reporting no test outcomes or are not conducting COVID-19 tests anymore. And that's according to the data released by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. Well, vaccination against the virus continues in Nigeria. So far, over 4 million Nigerians have received the first dose of the available vaccines in the country. According to the NPHCDA, Over 1.68 million others eligible Nigerians have been fully vaccinated. This makes up 1.5% of the target population. A reminder that vaccines are free and available to Nigerians aged 18 and above. Vaccine mandates are also coming into place in different states in Nigeria. At the moment, Edo and Ondo states have announced plans for vaccine mandates in Nigeria. It's becoming the new norm wherever you look in the world. Meanwhile, still in Nigeria, airlines are now permitted to board any traveler to Nigeria who is either unable to pay for the repeat day 7 COVID-19 PCR tests or generate a paid QR code. And that's according to the country's Civil Aviation Authority. A statement by the Director General of the agency, Captain Musa Nuhu, says this has become necessary as many travelers from Nigeria and into Nigeria are being denied boarding by airlines. This statement, however, said that such passengers will be required to make payment for the test at their destination airport in Nigeria. So they can now make those payments in person. To South Africa, Roaches already touched a bit on this earlier, where the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has announced plans to introduce COVID-19 passports, but didn't say much about it. This is coming into place, especially with the widespread skepticism that is greeting the COVID-19 jabs. Just over 7 million people in South Africa have been fully vaccinated to date, with more than a quarter of all adults jabbed with at least one dose. He mentioned restrictions. Yes, restrictions on the sale of alcohol will be relaxed, although face masks remain mandatory in all public places in South Africa. A nighttime curfew will be shortened by 1 hour, starting 11 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. And of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa also announced limits on indoors and outdoor gatherings will be increased. Meanwhile, the UK government has ruled out plans to introduce more lockdowns to fight COVID-19 crisis in England. Health Minister Sajid Javid says the vaccine passports to get into nightclubs and large events will also be scrapped. However, he says the COVID passport remains a reserved potential option, as the government will be depending instead of vaccines and testing to defend the public. But in Scotland, the scheme is going ahead starting October 1st. Prime Minister Boris Johnson this week will be setting out plans to manage COVID-19 over the coming few months as winter is coming. Britain has seen the number of cases climb over the last few months after easing restrictions in July. Finally, let's go to Bangladesh, where children flooded back into classrooms as schools reopened after 18 months. And that's one of the world's longest coronavirus shutdowns. The resumption comes after UNICEF just warned that prolonged school closures during the pandemic were worsening inequalities of millions of children across South Asia and elsewhere in the world.
Thank you, Adeswa. I'm really quite concerned about the NCAA. It does not make an awful lot of sense to me to allow people to board flights when they're unsure of their status. It doesn't matter whether or not they're going to pay when they get here for their COVID test. They might have already spread it all down the airplane. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. How about just fix the glitch? I did have to use it. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I had some challenges, but we got there in the end. Maybe things have worsened since then. How about fix it so that people can upload? You do have a need, I feel, to state whether you've been exposed to anybody that's had COVID-19 symptoms, whether you have COVID-19 symptoms. You do need to upload your test results, your fit to fly. It's important because what's going to happen now is that when they do get to Nigeria, whether or not they fill the form and do the COVID test, they've already brought it in. This is the last thing that we need right now. I'm actually panicking a little bit on this issue.
Yeah.
What do you think?
But Chunda, I think to make a clarification, the test to be paid for in person is a 7-day test. Yes. And you recall that travelers are supposed to have a negative test before the board, and they're supposed to pay ahead of another 7-day test. Yes. Now, this is, from what I understand from that statement, is for the 7-day ahead test. So it's the repeat test. You must have tested. This is just to, so travelers have been complaining that they are unable to pay on that platform. So now they can get into the country and pay for it. That's what I understand.
Yeah, but
yes.
fix it then.
But I agree with
understand
you.
it.
We can fix it.
Just fix it.
Yes.
Well, you talked about Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh has had one of the longest lockdowns that we have seen in the world. 18 months, children not being in school. And that had its own special challenges. Not just for Bangladesh, but in all the other countries in South Asia, where there have been, schools, shut down. In Nepal, in Pakistan, in India, they've had those challenges, prompting the UNICEF to protest that, look, prolonged closure of schools will result in inequities, and that, online teaching was not working in virtually every country in South Asia. And why was that not working? The cost of the device. It's not every family that can afford a smartphone. So that immediately kept some students out of the loop. And then, of course, those who live in rural areas, in Pakistan, in Myanmar, you see some of them going to the top of forests, of trees with their parents to be able to get good signal. Because for you to be able to do online teaching, you have to get, a certain degree of, signal. And the concern expressed by UNICEF is that, look, inequities will be widening, and that we have to worry about the future of those children and the ability of South Asian countries to be able to provide the necessary skills. So now in Bangladesh, the students, are coming back. There are protocols that have been put in place. They have to wear masks, social distancing, and even the education authorities were surprised that first day of school, the population that showed up was far over 41%, rate. So that's about that. As for South Africa, well, another concern in South Africa, apart from the reported deceleration of the infection rate, South Africa, by the way, has 2.8 million infection cases, 84,774 fatalities. And then the COVID variant became a big issue in June. And on June 27, President Ramaphosa put in place, first for 2 weeks, a set of restrictions, and then later expanded it. But of course, the president yesterday said that there is a deceleration, but there is a concern about vaccination, particularly among men who do not want to take the vaccine. So vaccine skepticism is a major issue still in South Africa. And if you look at some of the measures that have been taken, well, there isn't really much relaxation, because the President Ramaphosa is saying that vaccine passports will now become compulsory for you to be accessed, certain facilities or certain parts of the community. And you already said it, that, the curfew has been relaxed from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m. commencement time. But I think what many South Africans are also excited about is that, the bars will now be open, access to, evening enjoyment has been made possible. But of course, it's a developing situation. We've seen the Ramaphosa government trying every measure to make sure that it shakes off that toga of being the most impacted country in Africa, along with Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria, and Ethiopia. Those are the countries that account for the bulk of the infection rate in Africa. As for the UK, where the Prime Minister has done a U-turn, or what you call a vote for us, as was announced by Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, yesterday. And tomorrow, the Prime Minister is going to give an address to lay out what the plans are going forward. But in terms of the plans, what we understand is that the mask mandate will still be in place. You may not need, vaccine passports to access, clubs or to access crowded places. And the government is banking on the fact that, look, the UK is going to launch booster shots. It's just waiting for the approval of the Joint Committee on Immunization and Vaccination, the JCVI. And there's a clear indication that that is likely to come because the health experts, some, not all of them, are not objecting to it. And then the UK has already done vaccination for 16-year-olds and above, the plan from next week is to start vaccinating the age group 12 to 15. And the confidence with which we have seen this U-turn is derived from the fact that at least 89% of the adult population in the United Kingdom has taken at least one jab, and up to about 81%, has taken up to 2 jabs. However, in the UK, infection rate is still relatively high.
Right. I just saw, for some weird reason, when Dr. Abati was mentioning the fact that the bars will open again in South Africa, the word Nkomboti came to my head for some very weird reason. And I know you, obviously, I got that from a song. But for me, I think in this fight against COVID, yes, we've been able to wrap up vaccination, but I think the silver bullet in the fight is the fact that despite the fact that we want to wrap up vaccination, some people still get COVID. So how do we bring about care for people like that? And that's why I go back to the tale of monococcal cocktail. I think to a large extent, we've missed the ball in the fight. We've focused more on vaccines, where we should also be focusing on monococcal cocktails. The fact is, when people get COVID, how do they get treated? Do we have access to monococcal cocktails from the likes of Eli Lilly? I understand a couple of months ago, the NHS was trying to buy some monoclonal cocktail out of AstraZeneca, and they said it was going to cost them over 700 or 800 million. I think that's what we should focus on to reduce deaths, because either ways, people will still slip through the cracks. We will not meet the vaccination targets in time, and some people will still get COVID. But how can we reduce the death numbers? That should be the next challenge. Should we start looking for remedies for people that when they get COVID? And we could also look very strongly about antigens from the blood of people that caught COVID before. Can we develop something in and around there? Because, we're not looking. We're always saying vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. But people that get COVID, how can we cut those hospital ties? Monoclonal cocktails have shown that it can do that job for us. At least it saved the life of President Donald Trump and some other people that had access to it. How can we make that access ubiquitous? I think that should be the new challenge we should start thinking about. But thank you so much, Adesua. As always, you do a fabulous, fabulous job.